3, 2, 1, start. All right, we need to talk. Actually, you don't need to talk. I need to talk for the next 18 minutes. But how many of you have received this text? Immediately, you're like, what do we need to talk about? Are you mad at me? Am I in trouble? This could be from your mom, from your boss, from your girlfriend, from your boyfriend, from your whoever. It always strikes this moment of, I'm not sure what I did wrong. We're going to come back to this. I'm going to ruin your weekend just a little bit. Allow me to, if you are ready. What happens when we hear this sound? Maybe you won't hear the sound. There it is. Super loud. Okay, that's it. We'll move on. We'll go to the next slide because that is the sound of your weekend being absolutely ruined. And if you felt anxiety or irritation or being startled, you're not alone. The internet agrees with you. Everybody in this room agrees with you. There's this feeling of disgust and dread and abhorrence and anxiety. And I don't think it's because of this sound. I also don't think it's because we dislike work. I think it's because the way that this is designed to bid for our attention doesn't actually match the action that we're expected to take. This sound could be legitimately fear-inducing. Your manager saying, hey, the presentation has started already, where are your slides? You're still in bed and you totally forgot it was your job to do the slides. It could also just be your work bestie saying like, hey girl, I forgot my lunch, you wanna go out today? Not that big of a deal. Or it might just be a bot. It's not even something that we really need to pay all that much attention to. But you don't know what's coming when you hear that particular bop, bop, bop. And what's happening right there is something called attentional cost, and then even worse on top of that, attentional residue. Attentional cost is the amount of emotional energy and the time it takes to switch your focus from whatever task it was at hand to that particular notification, even if you don't take a look at what it says. And then attentional residue, which is coined by Dr. Sophie Leroy in a 2009 study on not only does your attention shift from the task at hand, but when your attention goes from the first task to noticing your second task, the notification, there's a residue. It takes a while before you can return to the first one with your full mental focus. Now, over the course of your day, over the course of your year, over the course of your quarter, this starts to build up. And it starts to build up in a way where we start asking the question, why am I not getting anything done? And why do I feel so overwhelmed all the time? What I've been trying to understand in this is, how do you actually design these notifications, these interfaces, these experiences to be a little bit more comfortable? And what I find useful is to start at the history of the field of ergonomics itself. Physical ergonomics really came about in the agricultural and industrial era. It started in making work more comfortable. And the idea behind this is largely the study of handles. You should be able to pull on a handle and have it be grippier, cushier, more comfortable, so that your worker would be able to pull this handle more times and be more productive over the course of a workday. Now, it's not just for handles. You might zoom out and say, how is it relevant to today's 9 to 5? How is it relevant to me, an office worker? Your chairs, your desks, your screens, everything has been designed and well studied for how do we design for this comfort to keep you sitting for 8 hours a day without being that upset about it. But I don't think it's just comfort. You can also use these same principles to design for an extreme sense of discomfort. And that might look like this. How many of you have sat in this chair? How many of you have bought this chair? Okay, if you've sat in this chair, you know that it's comfortable for like 10 minutes, maybe 15. And you know that this chair costs $1,500 US. So the question is, why are you paying so much money for such an uncomfortable chair? Part of this is because of context. The context that this chair sits inside of is, this is the Harvard Art Museum Cafe. You're coming into the museum, you're buying a coffee, you're sipping, you're looking at the art, and then your chair tells you it's time to get up and go because you're uncomfortable. We're paying so much money because we value the signal of telling someone it's time to leave. So the chair, I think, is emblematic of physical ergonomics, the ability to help you right now to sit in a certain way. But when work started to move from industrial and agricultural into the information age, mental ergonomics started to shape up. The design of visual systems, the design of posters, the design of billboards, the design of information. And so I'm gonna hijack your attention for a second. I fall for this every single time, even though I've seen it many times before. You will read this, and then you will read this, and then this one, and you will read this last. You knew it was coming, and you still got tricked. And this is because we've spent also a lot of time trying to understand, where does your eye go? How do we make information easier to understand for people who are working with data and information all the time? Every click, every mouse trail, every eye tracking moment is recorded, optimized, so that every app you're using, it's a little bit like a magician's pick a card, any card trick. You are picking the specific card they want you to. So the examples we've seen before have been on static things, right? Images and chairs. What starts to happen when you introduce sounds, like that Slack notification, or motion? And this is what I'm particularly interested in as an interaction designer. Take a moment to reset your feelings, because we're gonna feel some things. Here is a very common interaction that you might have in your day-to-day life. The dot, dot, dot. Dun, 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 dun. What are we feeling as we see this, as we pull out our phones and look at it? We're feeling, you can say it with me, 3, 2, 1. Anxiety. We're feeling this moment of like, what are they gonna say? Well, what's happening? What's going on? What's happening? And we're somehow okay with having this in our pockets every day. Hundreds of times a day we pull it out and we're like, oh my God, we're so anxious, what's happening? And all of these moments were designed. All of these moments were very intentionally put into your day-to-day experience to get a very specific result out. So perhaps we can use this as a working definition that emotional ergonomics is the design of attention for the fit of the intention behind that experience. And this fit is very important. It's not about good experiences or bad experiences. It's about making sure that the attention you're asking for is matching the intention that you are trying to set. So part of the problem in all of this, I think, is that when you have chairs, you have so many chairs. Loungers, couches, airplane seats that are very uncomfortable. But when it comes to all of the feelings and emotions that you're going through, it's just a phone. It's just one screen where all of these different messages are going through. It's an ad, it's spam, it's something actually important, it's your mom asking for peanut butter, it's a lot of different things. And there is no way of separating what these different emotions should be. Now, what is great about this everything device is that we're able to create this sense of recommended for you. Everything you see on your phone is so convenient. It's exactly the music you actually want to listen to. It's exactly the movies and the media and the TV shows that you actually would be interested in. But it comes a little bit at a cost. And that cost is really, really showing us what it means to spend time and pay attention. And it turns out that the pop-up ad, perhaps the most famous of attentional polls, was created by this person named Ethan Zuckerman. And it was an accident, allegedly. He was trying to separate the content of the pop-up ad from the content of the actual thing that you were reading. But in doing so, created this overburdening tax on your attention, this like thing that you're trying to swat away that keeps popping up over what you're trying to see. And unfortunately, the history of design is littered with things that are very well-intentioned, but unfortunately end up in unintended consequences. So you're asking yourself, what's wrong with this elevator? There are no buttons, exactly. It's not that there's anything wrong with not having buttons, right? This elevator came out of an era of going outside, swiping your badge, and then going inside, and then it would take you wherever you need to go. In the post-COVID or during COVID era, this was fantastic. You don't have to touch anything, which was really difficult for people to do. But the other thing that it created was this sense of getting in the elevator and just watching the doors close on your neighbor. You miss this moment to say, let me hold the door for you. Which floor are you going to? Do you need some help with your groceries? All you can really do is just stand there. But I don't want this to all be completely negative and make it that technology is always making things worse, because I think that there are ways to preserve a sense of comfort and a sense of humanity in updated versions. This is a set of doors, pillows, that I think is fascinating. Across the Middle East, you find this, right? Different knockers depending on who's coming to visit. If it's a friend of the family or a woman, you might knock the one on the left. Stranger or delivery, the one on the right. And this is intended so that the person who's inside knows, should I get dressed? How should I get dressed? Who should come down? Who should answer the door? You're able to appropriately respond to that notification. Sometimes these intentions get preserved even in newer updates. The Ring doorbell, for example, kept the ability to know who's coming and who's at the door. So the question here is really, how do you actually design things that are emotionally ergonomic, the ones that preserve and protect your attention, but also are able to give you all of the conveniences that you might want to see in updated design? I think it comes down to a lot of things, but these three things tend to show up time and time again. Context. What is happening? Let me know the status updates. Something's being updated, I want to know. Path. What happens next? And then pacing. How does time feel? Does it feel like it's going fast or slow? So let's get into each of these. For context, maybe we can think about it from a scale of ambiguous to clear. To go back to our very first introduction, we need to talk is very ambiguous. You're left there being like, what do we need to talk about? I'm really worried, am I wrong, am I in trouble? A very quick follow-up to that, we need to talk. It's not urgent, I just need 5 minutes to discuss tomorrow's game plan, immediately makes it clearer. You feel relaxed, you feel like this has resolved itself. But that's not to say that you always are looking for things that are ambiguous or clear. There are some moments where ambiguity is actually okay. I think that the next axis we might look at is expected versus surprising. It's not that you always want things to be expected. Sometimes surprise is nice. If you have a surprise birthday party, that's the whole point of that emotion. But you might encounter something like this, where you don't really know what's coming next. And this is the importance of path. With QR codes, we've gotten this fantastic technology that takes you anywhere you want to go in cyberspace. But in one moment, you're looking at this shirt, which in and of itself, fantastic case study in emotional ergonomics, but you're looking at the shirt being like, I don't know where that QR code is going. It could go to an Instagram, it could go to an ad, it could go to anything else. It depends on the kind of experience you want to have that day. But when you are applying for colleges, when you are applying for a visa, when you're doing your taxes, this is a time that you don't want any surprises. You want to have something expected. And this is where the tool of the progress bar or the tracker really comes in handy. The Common App, I think, does a really good job of this in their latest 2025 update, is showing you each and every step and where you're at. And then importantly, at the end, telling you that you are done. Being able to tell your user, being able to tell your customer, congratulations, you've completed it, there's nothing else you need to do, is such a good moment of resolution. And so in all of these, process what's happening, the path, what's happening next. The third one that I feel like is incredibly important is pace. Because if context gives you all of the information you need to make decisions, and a path gives you a direction to know where to take those decisions, this pacing is how you understand how quickly you want to be moving through it. So building on our progress bar, we might think about pacing as urgent or relaxed. There's nothing that's changing about the actual amount of time. For example, if you're waiting for pizza, it's going to take 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. But the amount of time it takes to make that pizza does not change. For whatever reason, Having this tracker and having this progress bar makes that perceived amount of waiting time a lot shorter. And it turns out this isn't just for when you're hungry and are looking for food. It also happens to be when you're waiting for the bus. Being able to see this interface, being able to have something tangible to make something so abstract as time become visible, helps you in your mind track and understand this is when it's coming, I'm anticipating what's next, I understand and have more context to make good decisions. But again, ergonomics is about fit. It's not always about making things feel faster. Because let's say we're looking at the example of a financial transaction. This buffer circle that we're all waiting there being like, when is it gonna finish? It's actually moving a lot slower than the actual transaction is taking. And the reason is because we want a financial transaction to be trustworthy. We want it to feel like it is taking an appropriate amount of time. And so, where does this show up in your day-to-day life? Let's say you are waiting in a line. Let's go through this concept of relaxed versus urgent time. You're waiting in a line. Oftentimes when you are waiting in a line, we are what? Urgent. You're waiting for something. The feeling of waiting never necessarily is something that you want to be doing. And of course, if you are waiting for the bathroom, it is urgent. You want this line to move as quickly as possible so you can do your business. But let's consider the case where you're actually waiting in line for ice cream. You're meeting up with a friend you haven't seen in a long time. This is a first date. You're meeting your niece for the very first time. That waiting experience, that waiting in line experience now is actually relaxed. You actually want it to feel like it's taking longer than the actual time that it took. And so all of these axes, I think, are pointing to something around emotional ergonomics that we want to consider, where productivity and work in the traditional field of ergonomics is usually optimizing for more productivity, something that is faster, something that feels safe and expected, something that pushes you towards a more productive decision. But I think when we zoom out and look at all of the human experiences that we have, waiting in line for ice cream, a surprise birthday party, doing your college applications, sometimes you want those things to feel a little bit surprising, a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less urgent, and a little bit less in that top zone of productivity. And so, as you go throughout your days, I hope that you notice the chairs that you're sitting in a little bit more and how they're shaping your experience. I hope that you also notice all the other things around your world that are shaping the way that you feel in your body and how you're being held. But in that, I also hope you now start to notice all of the different things that are holding your emotional weight. Not your physical body, but your nervous system, your attention, all of the other intangible things that make up what it feels like to be human. All of these little moments that were designed for you, that you're constantly designing for other people, and that we're experiencing as we are sharing time together. So, thank you so much for your attention. I'm Shu Yagong. It's been a pleasure.